Welcome back to another episode of the Hunt, Fish, Live podcast. In this one, I'm going to walk through what happened this past week during the MLF Tournament on Lewis Smith Lake in Alabama. Let's get into it. It was a crisp Wednesday morning when tragedy struck. Around 7 a.m. during the second day of competition, a collision occurred between a nitro bass boat and a center console vessel near the Miller Flats area of the lake. The impact was devastating. The victims were identified as 58-year-old Joey Broom, 44-year-old John Clark, 62-year-old Jeffrey Little. Broom, a councilman for the city of Sneed, was pronounced dead at the scene. Clark and Little were ejected into the water and tragically drowned. Their bodies were later recovered by authorities. Among the competitors, angler Flint Davis was involved in the incident. While the specifics of his role remain under investigation, Davis was among those injured. The Alabama Law Enforcement Agency's Marine Patrol Division is leading the investigation, and they're trying to determine the cause of the collision. In response to what happened, MLF made the difficult decision to cancel the remainder of the tournament, which was scheduled to conclude the following day. Major League Fishing expressed deep condolences to the families affected, calling the incident heartbreaking for the organization. The incident serves as a somber reminder for those of you who fish bass tournaments and spend any time on the lake of the inherent risks involved in high-speed boating, especially during competitions. Safety measures such as paying attention to no-wake zones and being vigilant and looking around, being aware of your surroundings are crucial to prevent such tragedies. As the investigation continues, the fishing community and the public await answers. For now, my thoughts are with the families and friends of those lost and with the survivors who carry the weight of the terrible event that happened that day. Now, I haven't heard really what happened. I'm not sure where the bass boat hit the center console bolt. I did hear that it was somewhere along the bow, but I'm not quite sure on that. So do not take my word for that. I fish bass tournaments, and I have fished bass tournaments for quite a few years, and takeoff can get very, very crazy. That's always my biggest worry, is being run over. I mean, it's not as big of a worry anymore because I have a bigger boat. But when I had my aluminum boat with my 5.5 horsepower motor on it, things got quite dicey, and they still do. These guys that have the 200 horsepower motors on the big fiberglass bass boats, they move a lot of water, and their wake and waves get pretty substantial in the first 30 seconds of takeoff some days. It feels like you are in a tsunami and the waves are huge. So it's always it's one of those things, right? You know what happens in that aspect, and you should always wear a life jacket, wear some sort of safety equipment in case you get thrown in the water from something like that. That is, I wouldn't go as far as wearing a helmet or anything, but wearing a life jacket or life vest or some sort of flotation device would definitely help if you got ejected from your boat. Also, make sure your kill switch is engaged on your throttle and it's clipped to you. So in case you go over, it'll pull that switch, pull that cord, flip that switch, and your motor will cut off instantly. So it does not become a flying missile along the water going towards God knows what. The other aspect of that is your number gets pulled or your number gets called or the air horn goes off and you head out across the lake to your fishing spot. You hammer down and you're going as fast as you want to go. For me, not that fast, about 25 or 30, but these big bass boats with the big motors are going upwards of 70 miles an hour, and stuff comes by fast, right? Like, think of driving down the road. How quick does that sign get to you when you're going 70, 75 down the expressway? It gets you pretty quick. And if you're not paying attention, you can roll up on someone real fast, and even if you see them, it's most likely too late if you haven't noticed. And it's tough to turn a boat quick, especially when it's going fast. You're not going to get it to move like you need it to do. There's just too much water and too much speed, and your boat's going to want to go in a straight line. And I think that's what happened in this situation. That's my opinion. Don't hold me to that. It might not be the facts, but I'm just saying I think speed was a factor in this terrible incident, and people lost their lives, and that's not good. Families are ruined, and on all sides of it, right? Like, the families of the men anglers who died are dealing with a ton of pain, and the ones who made it also have to see what they saw in their heads for the rest of their lives, and that would be pretty tough for me. It's something that I dread. I'm always super careful on the water. I always have my head on a swivel, and I am paying attention to what's going on around me. The boats that are crossing my path on the lake, anything that I'm coming up to, I like to try to steer clear, even during takeoff from tournaments. It's tough sometimes, but it can be done. It's okay to slow down a little bit and take your time getting to your spot if it means that you're safe and you're keeping others safe as well. As the spring starts turning into summer, the temperatures get warmer and the water gets more inviting. Everyone's getting their boat out, all you fishermen and pleasure boaters, getting it ready to hit the water and have a little bit of fun. I'm going to give you a few safety tips to keep in mind along the way. It'll help make your time in the water fun and safe. First tip, wear a life jacket. Always wear a U.S. Coast Guard approved life jacket and make sure it fits properly. This goes for everybody on board, regardless of swimming ability. And I believe here in Michigan, it is somewhat of a law, or it is a law for children to wear them at all times, especially while the boat is underway, moving through the water, being powered by a motor. The second tip is check the weather. Look at the forecast before you head out. Sudden changes in the weather, can be dangerous on open water. You're not going to know, like, where that lightning bolt is going to strike or where the winds are going to be really strong, and you don't know if you're going to be able to get back to shore safely. It's better to be on shore than sitting out in a lake during a thunderstorm, obviously. But if storms are predicted, it's best just to stay at the dock, stay at home, go out later, just to be safe. You don't want to be stuck out in a thunderstorm on a boat. My buddy Corey and I were fishing a tournament a few years ago, and we did not check the weather, or we did check the weather, but we were fishing in a tournament, and we were in a remote area that did not have cell signal, and so we could not pull up our radar and see the storm coming, and we were probably, 5 miles away from the boat ramp, and all of a sudden the sky turned dark, and it started raining, and there was lots of thunder, lots of lightning, and luckily we were next to a campground that had an open slip in their little marina, and so we were able to pull the boat in there and get off the boat and hide under someone's dock, under a tree on top of someone, next to someone's dock, and we waited it out, but we were soaked. It was so not safe. The boat had water coming up onto the floor from in the hull, and it was just bad news. Luckily, we did not get struck by lightning. There was a few close ones, but nothing too close. And luckily, our the bilge pump in my boat worked that time. So we were able to get all that water out of there and continue fishing safely. Another tip number 3 is don't drink in boat. I know it's hard for some of you who love to have a couple beers while on the boat driving. Just like driving, though, operating a boat under the influence is illegal and dangerous. So if you're the captain of the boat, save the drinks for when you're back on land. You're still going to have a good time. You're out on your boat, right? Make sure you have your safety gear is the 4th tip of the day. Essential items include fire extinguisher, flares in case you get stranded, a whistle or a horn, same deal, flashlight in case you're stuck in the dark, a first aid kit, always a first aid kit. We had a situation a few years ago where my daughter fell in the boat and hit her head and split her forehead open, and she needed stitches. Well, we were on the other side of a lake, 45 minutes to, actually, over an hour away from the hospital that she could get help at, and we did not have a first aid kit on the boat, and so we were using shirts and anything we could find to stop the bleeding, or to contain the bleeding from her forehead. And so ever since then, the boat has a first aid kit with Band-Aids, everything on board. It's just one of those things where, if you don't have it, you're going to need it. And if you have it, you're hopefully not going to need it. But it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So my wife and I actually stocked our vehicles with first aid kits also after that situation. Just a bad deal. I felt terrible for her. We also did not catch any fish, so that kind of sucked as well. So, yeah, just be prepared. Preparedness is key. The 5th tip is know the rules of the water. Learn and follow navigation rules, right-of-way guidelines, and local boating regulations. It's like driving. Knowing the rules helps avoid accidents. Here in Michigan, we have a 150-foot rule. You're not supposed to be speedboaters aren't supposed to be within 150 feet of docks, boats, fishing boats, on plane. So I've had a couple instances on lakes around my house that I've been in some pretty dicey situations with people on their wake boats getting too close. A bass boat in a big wake does not mix well together, especially an aluminum bass boat like the Bass Tracker style like we have. It gets pretty bouncy up front, and it's very unsafe to be that close to somebody putting out that big of a wake, and it's illegal. I know you can get a ticket for it. I've seen people get tickets for it. Life jackets, also make sure you have one for each person on your boat. Like I said, that is also a ticketable offense. I have been busted for it as well. Mistakenly, it was one of those deals. My buddy Braden and I were fishing a tournament, and we didn't have the life jackets in my little aluminum boat, and we both decided that we'd be fine. The sheriff wasn't going to be out there patrolling the waters that night. It was just a normal Wednesday night, and lo and behold, we get out there. We made the decision not to go back and get the life jackets, and the sheriff's deputy, Marine Patrol, came up to us and checked our licenses, which were good, and asked for life jackets, and we did not have any. So I got a ticket for that. It was like $60, so not terribly expensive, but it was enough to not have that happen again. Ever since then, life jackets are always on board. We always carry a couple extra too, so just in case someone else is on the boat or needs one at some point in time. Well, that's it for this episode of the Hunt, Fish, Live podcast. While you're waiting for your life jackets to be delivered by Amazon, subscribe to the podcast and give this episode a thumbs up. Turkey season's on the way, and I have a lot to talk about. Thanks again for listening, everyone. Have a good one.